Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you are new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you so much for being here. You all mean the world to me. I have 5 new projects featuring plaid today. Super excited because we are part of Annie Jones's playlist. I will tell you more about that in a little bit. Oh, and there's a giveaway, so stay tuned. Let's get right on into the crafting. DIY number 1. We are starting out with a couple of Dollar Tree tag signs. I had picked these up last 4th of July time, and I am popping off all of these little stars. They are little metal stars, so I will keep them for a future project. And then I decided I was just going to sand this down a little bit. I am not going to be painting on this side, so this really probably isn't necessary. I just decided that I wanted to do that. But painting these with my chalk paint in crimson and Adirondack white. The one was Waverly, the other was Home Decor. They are both plaid projects. So I'm using my plaid stencil to go ahead and put down some hearts. I'm using the crimson chalk paint again on this. And then I did have a little bit of leakage? Seepage? I'm not coming up with the right word right now, you guys, but I went ahead and used my white with a little tiny narrow brush there and just touched up some of the places where I had some bleeding. That was the word I was looking for. Now I am taking a mason jar lid, just the metal rim, and I'm using it as a template for my tag holes because I wanted to have like a little grommet looking thing there. So I'm using my folk art brushed metal acrylic paint for that, and I did that on both of the tags. And now I'm just taking a look at how I'm going to have them lined up a little later. I had gone into Canva and just did a happy Valentines with some hearts, and I just printed that out on my computer. I figured I would give this a shot. I've seen my sweet friend Deirdre on the Upcycled Life do this, and I did it wrong right from here, you guys. I should have painted the paper as opposed to the tag, and I realized that pretty much as soon as I started laying down the Mod Podge. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just improvising here, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a coat of the Mod Podge. This is a matte Mod Podge that I'm using. Just make sure that the whole surface is consistent. And I set that aside to dry for now. I'm coming back in on my other side and just adding some X's and O's. I'm just doing this by hand. You could certainly use stencils, or you could print something out and trace them. I did think about tracing my happy Valentines with the hearts. Well, not necessarily tracing it, but marking it with either pencil on the back and rubbing it that way, or I was also thinking about using graphite paper, but ultimately I decided I wanted to try this method. Now, I do think that this works really well if you have a white background. So with my red background, you can see I've got some residue. I'm not sure if that's Mod Podge or if it's some of the white paper. My guess is that it's retaining some of that white paper. I did try to sand it to see if I could remove a little bit more of that to blend, and yeah, it wasn't working. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and start over. And so I went ahead and put down a coat of my crimson chalk paint, but I could still see the image through it. So I took that opportunity to just trace over it with one of my paint markers. This is an Arteza paint marker. I have these in my Amazon store if that's of interest to you. In fact, a lot of my supplies are available in my Amazon store, and that link is in my description box. But I went ahead and I traced over everything, and it actually ended up really great. And you can see right now if you look closely, that I've got a couple of different sheens going on there, and that's because I had put the chalk paint over it again, and I did not go back over yet with the Mod Podge. But do not fear, because I will be going back over this again with another coat of Mod Podge right here, just to make sure that everything is uniform, and it also ended up helping to seal in my design. Once that was done, I came in with some white hearts, just because I felt like the design was a little bit too dark and I wanted something to brighten it up. So I just put some random little hearts all over the little tag. And then I did decide I was going to draw the inside of the hearts there to brighten those up a little as well. And I am absolutely loving this. I hope that you are liking it too. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my tags together. I'm being careful to line them up the way I want them and not cover those holes. We're going to need both of those holes. So just keep that in mind as you are gluing these together. I'm just using hot glue. You can certainly use E6000, whatever you deem necessary. And then I'm gonna flip this over, and I am grabbing some craft paper to go ahead and cover up the back. Now you could probably do this, you could line them before you put them together. I chose to do it once they were adhered because I wanted the back to look as cohesive as the front. And I'm just applying hot glue along all of the edges, and I'm working quickly because I don't want the glue to cool off too much to grab the paper before I have a chance to lay it down. So I did it in sections and just worked my way around the tags. Sometimes if it cools too much, I do use my heat gun on it, and that will actually melt the glue again. Had a little bit of glue on that parchment paper, so it was sticking to my sign, but we took care of that. Filled in a little gap that I noticed. And then I am just using my X-Acto knife on my self-healing mat. That mat is also from Arteza. And my little X-Acto knife is actually a Cricut tool that is wonderful. I love it. So I'm just cutting away all of that excess paper and making sure that I'm getting the inside of the holes as well. Once that is all set, I'm grabbing my jute twine. This is a roll I had picked up at Walmart. It has lasted me a really long time. I want to say it was only like $4 or something, but it's been great. And these lengths are, I guess, about 30 inches. You can certainly make them longer or shorter depending on where you're going to be hanging your project and how long you want your ribbon to be. But I'm just tying all of those lengths together at the top, and that's going to be my hanger. Now I'm grabbing out my buffalo check ribbon, and I'm going to create a bow. So I was looking at it as possibly just the simple bow, and I decided I wanted to make it a little bit fluffier with more loops. So I went ahead and I created a bow with 3 loops on either side. If you are interested in a bow tutorial, I do have one on my channel, and I'll be happy to link that in the description box for you. But essentially I created my loops, 3 on either side, and then I took another little length of ribbon, tied it around the middle. I'm just making sure my loops are staying all the same length, and then tying that off nice and tight. Fluffing up my little bow loops, and then I'll go ahead and I'll attach it to the top, and I'll attach it simply by tying that same tie that we used for the middle. I'm going to tie it around my jute twine below the knot, and that is going to be sufficient to hold it in place. You can certainly use glue on it as well, but it's not necessary. And I'm just going to fluff up my ribbon again, and here we are. Let me know what you think. DIY number 2. This is another Dollar Tree sign I had picked up last year around this time of year, and I am gonna pull it all apart, and then I'm gonna sand it down. Now this time I will be painting on this side, so I do need to make sure that it is nice and sanded down and smooth and cleaned up. And I'm going to be put it, yeah, craft paper, that. Lining, that was the word I was looking for. Oh my goodness, you guys. Um, I went ahead and I lined all of my little pieces, and now I've got the front side of it here that I'm working with. I'm filling in that little hole, and once my spackle was dry, as you saw, it went on pink and it dries white. I sanded that down, and now I'm using my Crimson Chalk Paint again by Waverly, and I'm gonna go ahead and give those 2 coats. Now I am grabbing a couple of paint sticks. I was just trying to figure out where I needed to cut this off so that it will cover all of my little pieces, but also I'm cutting it at an angle so it fits properly at the base there. So you can see how I did that. I essentially just cut off the little handle and it was fine. Now this is my vintage Victorian paint, also by Home Decor. And while I'm doing that, I wanted to tell you about my sweet friend Annie from Indiana Jones. She is amazing. She is honestly a beautiful person inside and out. I love her, and I hope you'll go and check out her channel, give her some love, let her know I sent you. She is one of the most creative people I know, and she does lives and all kinds of wonderful crafts. I love her, and she is hosting this playlist with all these amazing crafters. We are also having a Plaid gift away, so if you're interested, here are the rules. The deadline is January 21st at 5 p.m. You need to make sure that you watch all the videos and comment with their secret words. Mine is chalk paint because that's what I'm highlighting today. So once I had all of the pink applied, I'm using these little wooden blocks as spacers. These aren't going to be part of my project, but I'm using them to just make sure I have all of my pieces equally spaced before I apply my little, what would you call these? My backers. Now you can see I got some red chalk paint on my liner. I should have lined it after I had painted all the pieces. So word to the wise, you might want to paint first and then line. So I end up fixing that later, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark pencil marks here so I know where to put down my hot glue to adhere my, what would you call these, braces? Whatever you want to call them. So I went ahead and marked those, put down my hot glue, and then applied these to the back. And the reason I had painted them pink is you are going to see little bits of this from the front. And if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know I like having everything finished. So here I am fixing this. I ended up just painting the whole back pink, you guys, because yeah, can't be having little splotches of red on my craft paper. So I gave that a couple of coats and it made my heart a little happier. And this way too, if you have it on a glass door and somebody sees the back of it, you know, it's done and it's pretty. And of course, I got a little bit of paint on this side too. I went back in and I touched that up with some of my red chalk paint, and all was well once I had that all set and done. Just used my heat gun to help dry it, and that's it. Now, I wanted to have a sponge, and I could not find a sponge that I wanted to use. So I just crumpled up a piece of parchment paper for this, and I'm using some more of my pink paint, almost like a dry brush, but dry parchment paper method. I don't know, but I just liked the effect. I wanted it to just be kind of a pounced effect on the edges of my heart. And now I'm coming in with one of my Arteza paint markers, and I am just going to hand letter this. If you are interested in a hand lettering tutorial, I also have one of those on my channel, and I will leave a link for that in the description box as well. But I am just taking my time. This is sped up by about 3 times, so please don't think that this is my handwriting. It is not. I am drawing these letters on here, and I'm just really taking my time and using that faux calligraphy method that I go over in the tutorial. So once I had that all set, just filling these all in a little bit. And you can also, again, you can trace something if you want to print it out. Oh, and I was having a little bit of trouble. I'm wishing that I had coded this. I actually had done this project before I did the tag project. And I learned from this one. That was why I put the Mod Podge down before I started putting white down on my red tag in that last project. Because when I started applying white paint on the red chalk paint, it was turning my paint pink. So I did go ahead and coat it with a clear coat afterwards just to protect it. But I had gone back in with my white acrylic paint just to make it more white as opposed to pink for my words there. And I'm just using this cord that I had picked up on clearance from Michael's last year. I just think it's so pretty. It's a white and pink cord, and I'm using that to create a hanger on the back. I'm just pulling that up to make sure it's going to hang properly, and I decided I was going to give it a little extra support at the top there, so adding a little bit more hot glue. And there you have it. She is all done, and I love her. Let me know what you think. DIY number 3. All right, I have had this in my stash for a while, and then I've just recently picked up these foam roses at the Dollar Tree. The love is also from the Dollar Tree. I love these little roses. They are so pretty. I, I don't even know how to describe them. They do not look cheap at all whatsoever. They look lush and pretty and full and just so soft and velvety. I love them, but I'm essentially just going to fill in this. I'm calling it a wreath form. I'm not sure if that's what you would call it, but I'm filling in this wreath form with my little roses, and I'm going to alternate. Look at how pretty those are, you guys. I just love these so much. I'm going to have to see if I can find more of these. I know that they've had them in a larger size as well. I did not find the larger size. I only found the small ones, and I picked up 6 little bags of them. I picked up 3 pink, 3 red. I didn't think it was going to take that many to complete this project, but I pretty much used all of them. So this is more like a $7 project, but I think it's so sweet. Now the V and the E I was looking at, and I was like, they're kind of globbed together there. So I do have a solution for that. But first I went ahead and tied off some more of that cord. It's the same cord that I used on the last project, and I'm using that as my little hanger. So I'm thinking about what I'm going to do here, because I felt like it needed to be a little bit more defined. Watching on the video now, it looks more defined to me than it did in person, but I went ahead and I just used a little bit of my white Adirondack chalk paint and just defined the tops of the letters a little bit more so you could see what it was. And that's it. And now it's time for a shout out timeout. Cute Grammy Sagmo, look at those little faces. I love them. And so sweet Tony, loving the Christmas trees. And Pretty Mary, these are beautiful. Look at those cute little reindeer. And beautiful Janet, the beaded garland is beautiful, and really nice Rose. Rose has been busy. Do you have a project you'd like to share? I would love to give you a shout out too. Just send me an email at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, I have a bunch of Dollar Tree socks. I have my Dollar Tree twine, some Dollar Tree wood cutouts, and some fiber fill here. I'm just going to be cutting up some of these socks. I'm going to stuff my little wood hearts inside the socks. And then I'm pretty much going to form the sock around the wood piece the way that gets the design the way I want it. And then I'm going to glue down one end, and I'm going to be trimming that up. I want it to be very form-fitting, and I'm trying to eliminate as much of the bulk as possible. I want to make this as neat as I can it will be the back of the garland. And typically the way that we use garlands, you don't normally see the back, but I just want it to be as neat as possible, just in case, because I might decide to use this on a tier tray. You never know. But I'm just going to make it as neat as I possibly can and just make sure I've got everything hot glued and secured. And then before I seal up the other side, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stuff it with some fiber fill on the front side only, just making my hearts poofy. So this is a really simple project. I'm just using my scissors to poke it down inside the point part of the heart. And then I'm going to make sure that everything is nice and formed. And I am going to add some more fiber fill. This, like I said, this project is really simple. It just takes a little bit of time and patience to get everything lined up the way that you want it, and to make sure that you're trimming the amount of your fabric, or your sock in this case, so that you have enough to cover, but you don't end up with a whole bunch of it bunched up behind your project. So I just took my time. I went slowly. I glued a little bit at a time, and I didn't commit to cutting anything until I got to the point where I was ready to secure that part to cover up all of the other stuff that I was doing, if that makes sense. So here you can see I got it down as much as I could, and then I'm gonna test it, and then I'm going to figure out how much I want to cut off. The great thing about the socks is that they're stretchy, so if you cut off a little bit too much, you can always stretch it up, like tuck it under and pull it up and stretch it to fit where you need it to go. So once I had that done, I went ahead and I took my twine, and I'm figuring out how long I want it, and then I kind of did a bunch of loops because I wanted to have the same length hangers for all of my little hearts that I'm going to be creating. So I cut those off. I would say they were probably about 8 inches long. I created a loop, tied it off, and then I'm tucking the knot down inside the back of it so that the knot is hidden, and I'm going to add some more hot glue in there. So there it is, super cute, right? And then I just went ahead and I did the same thing with my other socks, and I did a whole bunch of different designs. So I leveraged the Be Mine on the socks. I ended up doing some with the stripes. I have some with the little white socks with the red and pink hearts. I did the other Be Mine that you see there. And I just followed that same method each time, just making sure that I had everything nice and sealed, trying to make it as neat as possible, and trimming where necessary. I am not going to make you sit here and watch every single one of these hearts, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity to see me do one more. And then I went ahead and did the same thing with the rest of them. So adding in this little hanger one more time, knotting that up, and we're going to be speeding through this in just a moment once I have this one put together. So again, just hot gluing it, and then you can pull up the excess of the sock and just make that nice and tight. So here we are with all of the different ones that I had done. I think I might have done one more after that, but then, oh no, I didn't. I moved on to these little hearts. These are from the Dollar Tree, and I'm adding these to my garland as well, just to provide a different texture and some more interest. And I am going to sew these together with some twine. I went ahead first and created a loop at the top that was about the same length as the loops on the others, but I kind of used it as one single piece, so I did not cut that. I created the loop, knotted it off, and then I went ahead and continued with the same length of twine and sewed it around. You certainly don't have to do it that way, but that's what I did. Once I got about 3/4 of the way around, I stopped sewing for a moment and I stuffed it with my fiber fill again, and then I went ahead and I sewed it up the rest of the way. Now, once I had it completely back to my starting point, I went ahead and I knotted it off, and then I hid my end inside the heart. And to do that, I stuck my needle in and kind of ran it through the inside of the heart, came out a different place, and then I went ahead and cut off the length of the twine. And then as you saw, I did them in pink and white as well. And now I have a whole bunch of mini clothespins from the Dollar Tree, as well as these little wood hearts, which are also from the Dollar Tree. They came in a pack of a whole bunch of little wood pieces of all different shapes and sizes. And I glued the hearts onto the tops of the clothespins. And now I am painting everything with my Cardinal Red acrylic paint. This is a folk art product, which is also by Plaid, because we love Plaid. And so as I was doing this, I was like, I need a solution here to not get paint all over my fingers and yet to get everything covered. So I folded up a piece of parchment paper and then I attached all of my little clothespins to that, which allowed me to finish painting them without making a mess of myself. And I was just afraid that if I let it dry first and then went back, I might end up with a little ridge in my paint, and I didn't want that. So this was my solution for that cute little hack. Once that was all dry, I went ahead and I kind of added little, what are those, polka dots with my white enamel paint. This is also by Folk Art. And then I did that on the first half. On the second half, I created stripes. You can do whatever you choose. You can make different colors. You can do different designs. You don't have to put a design on it if you like them all just a solid color, but use your imagination and make it your own, whatever makes your heart happy. But here they are. Let me know what you think. DIY number 5. All right, styrofoam heart. I love all of these styrofoam forms that the Dollar Tree does. I decided I was going to go ahead and sand this though, because there's a ridge all along the sides of the heart. I imagine they have 2 pieces of styrofoam that they somehow put together. So I gave the whole thing a nice little sanding and made it nice and smooth. It was really kind of cool because it started looking like cement after I put the chalk paint on it for doing this. Excuse me. So it had a really kind of cool look to it. That was my Adirondack white chalk paint. I decided I needed some help with this. I didn't want to just set it down, and I also needed to finish painting it. So I fashioned the foam core with those skewers, and it worked actually really well. So once it was all dry, I went ahead and grabbed one of my napkins from my stash. This, I believe, came from Bed Bath & Beyond. I'm not positive because I've had these for quite some time, but I think that's where it came from. So it's really important that you use just one layer. This was a 3-layer napkin, so I pulled away just that top layer. And now I'm going to prep my design. I am just wetting a paintbrush and using the wet paintbrush to draw an invisible line around where I want to tear it. And then you can see it just tears really, really easily that way. And then once I had that all trimmed away and cut out, I decided to see how it was going to lay on my heart, because with the curves, you just want to make sure that it's going to lay down as flat as possible. And then I made a couple of adjustments as necessary so that I could get it to form to my heart shape without too many wrinkles. Now, one thing I forgot to do was to tear along the straight edges of my napkin. You want to make sure that you do that, and I'll show you in a minute why. But in the meantime, I am putting down a really good layer of Mod Podge. This is a glossy Mod Podge. Mod Podge is also a Plaid product, if you didn't know. But I'm covering the entire area that I'm going to be adhering this particular piece of napkin to, stretching it out gently so I don't tear it, and just forming it to my heart. And then I'm starting with some more Mod Podge and working my way out from the center to the edges, just laying that down, trying to help it go where I want it without the wrinkles. You see that straight edge with the flowers there? You want to make sure you tear the edges of your napkin. You don't want straight edges like that because it creates a harsh line. When you tear it, and that's why I don't cut my designs out either. When you tear it, it kind of blends in with the background and it is so much less noticeable. And you will see in just a moment what I'm talking about. I did end up tearing that other side because I noticed that there was some break in the pattern that I didn't like. So you can see it there, I had torn that off. So that side worked out well, but there is that line I'm talking about. I don't like that. Now I probably could have gone in and sanded that. I wasn't sure what it would do to the shape of the styrofoam, and I would probably have to repaint it. So I decided I was going to just try and go with it. Was hopeful that I'd be able to camouflage it. Didn't really work out that way, but this is the back anyway, so I figured it was going to be okay. So do as I say, not as I do. Make sure you tear all of your edges so you don't end up with harsh lines. But I'm taking another piece of the napkin and just getting this lined up and figuring out how I want it placed, tearing off the excess, trying to figure out how I need to do it to get it to form around those curves. And then I went ahead and I kind of trimmed out a wedge there, trying to get it to form around the side of that heart. So I'm laying it down. It's still kind of bunching a little bit, so I tried taking out a little bit more, but ultimately I realized that I needed to just remove that piece and lay it down separately because it just wasn't laying down flat, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine. So I separated it here, and then I'll just lay these pieces down separately. So getting that where I want it. And then I'll go ahead, I'm kind of holding it in place because I don't want to lose my spot there. But go ahead and put some Mod Podge down underneath it. I'll lay it back down over, and then I'll come back over it with the Mod Podge to seal it all in. And you can do this with all different kinds of things. I had a pumpkin that I did last year. Actually, I guess it was 2020 that I did that pumpkin, and I was amazed at how much you all liked that pumpkin. And then I had also done a bunny that was really popular. I love the styrofoam products that the Dollar Tree puts out. They have so many possibilities, and I'm already thinking about what I can do with the other foam hearts that I picked up at the Dollar Tree at the same time during a recent haul. That video is over on Come On Over with Corie. If you're interested in seeing that and everything else that I got at the Dollar Tree, I will link that in the description as well. But let me know what you think of this one. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you haven't already subscribed, I hope that you'll consider doing that and hit that little bell so you get notified every time I upload a new video. Please give me a big thumbs up, and don't forget about the playlist. The link is in my description box, as well as a link for my friend Indie Annie Jones's channel. I hope that you'll check her out, give her some love, let her know that I sent you. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.